Welcome to today's explainer. So, we're diving straight into the profound secret of hafiziyat. Have you ever just looked around and wondered if the universe simply discards the past? Like, does anything truly vanish? Well, according to some really profound natural and spiritual observations, absolutely nothing in this universe ever truly goes away. There's this underlying divine principle of preservation constantly at work. Today, we're unpacking how the physical and spiritual worlds are totally, inextricably bound by this concept of universal memory. We're going to see how nature's meticulous record-keeping actually points to a much grander spiritual reality.
To kind of ground this massive philosophical idea, we really just have to look at the natural world right outside our doors. I mean, did you know trees actually record their own history? Seriously, when you look at a cross-section of a tree trunk, you're not just looking at rings that tell you its exact age. You are looking at a meticulous, physical record of its entire life. The thickness of those rings, the chemical makeup in the wood, the scars embedded deep in the bark, they literally reveal the harsh droughts it survived, the seasons of abundant rain, the exact climate history it lived through over decades or even centuries. Nature is, in a very real, tangible sense, recording its own past in high definition. Part 1. Nature's flawless record book, the physical memory of the universe.
Now, this natural tendency to keep incredibly detailed records, it extends far beyond just the trees in our forests. And that brings us to the core framework of today's explainer, hafiziyat. This is the divine secret of universal preservation and memory, ensuring that absolutely nothing is ever truly lost. It's basically the grand, overarching principle governing why the universe acts as this massive, perfectly organized archive. Once we wrap our heads around hafiziyat, we stop seeing the world as a series of random, fleeting events. Instead, it's like a meticulously archived library where every single detail, no matter how microscopically small, matters. It's intentionally and carefully preserved by a higher order. Think of these elements in nature as literal storage drives, kind of like the massive data centers or cloud storage networks we rely on every day, but infinitely more complex and efficient. Like we just talked about, tree rings physically log climate history. Then you've got DNA, this elegant code that perfectly preserves vast amounts of complex biological data across countless generations, making sure survival mechanisms are never lost. But honestly, perhaps the most staggering example is the tiny seed. Just imagine the breathtaking reality of a massive spring landscape, all those blossoming flowers, towering trees, complex root systems, sweet fruits. All of those incredibly complex life programs are flawlessly written, compressed, and protected inside microscopic seeds. The info doesn't just disappear when autumn ends and winter freezes the ground, right? It's perfectly preserved, packed away into a tiny natural hard drive, just waiting to be unpacked and executed again when the time is right. Part 2. The grand question of the seventh truth. From physical reality to philosophical logic. So we've clearly established that the physical, observable world is obsessed with recording data. Now let's pivot into the deep philosophical logic introduced by Said Nursi's 10th word, specifically within what's known as the seventh truth. The text poses this profound question about the very nature of existence. Read this with me. Is it possible that a preserving power that perfectly protects everything in the sky, earth, land, and sea wouldn't record the actions of humans? I mean, think deeply about that for a second. Think about the incredible, delicate balance and protective order governing the entire cosmos. If every tiny seed is guarded, if every tree's drought history is meticulously logged, and if every microscopic strand of DNA is protected by this universal preserving power, we're basically forced to ask a very logical question about our own place in this massive system. And there's an inevitable, logical leap we just have to make here. Humans aren't just background characters in this cosmic play. We carry a grand creation, a unique, complex consciousness, and an equally grand responsibility. If a universal system perfectly evaluates and preserves everything down to the smallest biological code in a grain of wheat, well, a system of such incredible order and absolute accountability must surely account for humans, right? We are arguably the most consequential and morally responsible beings on this planet. It totally defies all logic and reason to think that the universe would rigorously track the lifespan of a single falling leaf, but completely ignore the sweeping, impactful actions of human beings. Part 3. The lasting mark of conscious actions, merging the physical and the spiritual. There is an absolutely undeniable parallel to be drawn here. On one side, we have nature's record. We've seen that totally unconscious matter, mindless things like wood, genetic molecules, and tiny seeds perfectly preserve data. They have this rigorous, flawless physical memory. But on the other side, we have the human record. We possess deep consciousness. We make deliberate, calculated actions. We speak words with intent. We make heavy, moral choices that actually shape the world around us. So the philosophical argument here is beautifully simple but deeply profound. If mindless matter is subjected to such an incredibly rigorous memory system, it would be completely inconsistent and frankly a bit absurd for conscious human actions to go unrecorded and just fade into nothingness. The rule of universal preservation, hafiziyet, absolutely must apply to us too, just on a much higher, conscious and spiritual level. And, this ultimate metaphysical conclusion is perfectly captured in Scripture. Consider this direct quote from the Qur'an, Surah Qaf. Not a word does a person utter without an observer ready by them. This is the direct confirmation of everything we've been unpacking today. The universal law of preservation, the exact same principle that logs ancient rain in the rings of trees and protects sprawling spring flowers inside microscopic seeds, applies directly to the human soul. Every word you utter, every deliberate action you take, every moral choice you make is observed. It's preserved. It matters immensely. Absolutely nothing is lost to the void.
So I want to leave you with a deeply personal question. Have you ever realized that a single action of yours left a far more lasting mark than you thought? Just as the universe meticulously records its own history, your choices, your words, and your actions are leaving an indelible mark on the fabric of reality. You're writing your own record every single day. Take a moment to really reflect on the lasting spiritual weight of your everyday actions. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it changes the way you look at the natural world around you and the profound weight of the actions you take within it.